What's going on, guys? Thanks for coming back, checking out the video. Well, I got a 2001 XJ in the garage. Gonna do a compression test on it. It's not mine, it's a good friend of mine's. He just picked it up. It needs a whole bunch of stuff done to it. It needs gaskets, water pumps, interior work. It needs a whole bunch of stuff. It's got like 200 million miles on it. These things are good. These are good Jeeps. They last forever. But this one has a little bit of engine noise, and I'm just curious to see what kind of condition the motor's in. So we're gonna do a compression test on it today. All right, guys. So here we go. We got my compression tester here. This is just a real inexpensive one that I had bought on Amazon a couple years ago. It comes with 2 adapters, and on top of that, I got a remote start switch. This is real handy for doing compression tests, and I'll show you why here in a minute. Alright guys, before you take anything apart, go ahead and warm the motor up to operating temperature. That's going to give you the best and most accurate reading. Alright, so this guy here, it uses a coil pack rail. That's a good way to burn your fucking car down. Alright, so this guy here, it uses a coil pack rail, okay? So here are the coils, and they're all on one big fat rail. I'm just going to go ahead and remove that. And these bolts on the XJ, they're 13 millimeter. All right, so the rail itself, you just wiggle it, it'll come right out. And there's a connector back here in the back of it. Alrighty, here's the coil pack. Connector at the back of it. Remove all these spark plugs. We're gonna take all of them out, check them out. One of these magnetic spark plug sockets, these are real handy, real useful. They're not very expensive. They do an excellent job of helping you out. Pretty easy. So, it's got some good spark plugs in it. Platinum's up in here. Yeah, I'm a little surprised on how easy these things are coming out. They come out, they might be a little loose. They're definitely not torqued in there at the right torque. They're actually kind of loose, so. All right, so our next step would be to go ahead and find the relay or the fuse for the fuel pump. We're gonna need to disconnect that because we're actually gonna need to crank the car over when we have the compression gauge, hooked up to it. And we don't want fuel being dumped into the cylinders while we're doing that, okay? You can lock up the motor, and you can kind of get some like wet false readings that way too. We want to do it nice and dry, and we don't want to lock up the motor. Now that brings me to this starter remote switch. Okay, there's an advantage to having one of these and to using it, and that is you don't have to actually disconnect the fuel pump or look for the fuse or anything like that if you use one of these, because the way it hooks up directly to the starter using these 2 alligator clips, a big one and a small one. And basically down there is where the starter is. It's pretty easy to get to. You have a battery cable that you can connect this to down there, and then you have a trigger wire down there you connect it to. And it's like big cable, small cable, and then you just hit the button and it'll activate the starter. Doing that doesn't activate the whole car, it doesn't activate the fuel pump, it just activates the starter. So it'll save you some time. I'm going to show you where the fuel pump relays at, and I'm going to show you how this works too. Alright, so right here where the fuse box is on this car, it's pretty simple. It says right there fuel pump, that's going to be the relay. It's going to be this guy here, and all we got to do is pull that out, and there won't be any more fuel going to the motor when we go to crank it over to do our test. Alright, so one more thing you're going to need to do to get the most accurate compression reading possible is go to your throttle body, and you're going to have to open it up and keep it open with something. I'm going to use a crescent wrench here. Keep that sucker wide open. That way the motor gets the most amount of air it can, so our readings are the most accurate they can be. Alright, so we get our gauge now, and we're going to pick the right adapter. It's really, really simple. If you don't know what the thread is, all you do is get an old spark plug, match it up like this. There we go. Alright, so compression gauge is all ready to go. We're going to go ahead and disconnect it here. You can see that it has a pressure relief right there. And normally you start with cylinder 1, which is behind all this right here, which is going to be kind of hard to film. I'm going to start with cylinder 3 and show you how that goes. Now what we're going to want to do is we're only going to want to let the motor turn over 3 times. It's 3 compression strokes. We don't want to do any more than that. The spec for it is actually 120 psi to 150. If we do more than 3 compression strokes, our readings might be a little false. We might get higher than normal readings. So we want to kind of listen for 3 rotations, 3 puffs into the gauge. You can actually kind of see the gauge move 3 times and see what we have, okay? So it's really simple. We're just going to go ahead and thread this right in here. You don't have to worry about that end getting stuck in the block because it does have like a fitting on it where you can use like tools on it if it does get stuck down in there when you go to take this thing out. So don't worry about that. This is a good tester. For as much as I paid, it's a pretty good tester, okay? Hook it back up, and now we're going to use the remote start switch, and we're going to crank it, and we're going to listen for like 3 rotations, 3 compression strokes. Okay, so that was 3. You can see how the gauge moved 3 times. And we're sitting at about 155 according to the gauge, which the gauge might not be 100% accurate, but 155 is a little higher than what the spec is supposed to be, so I'm going to call that 150, okay? Which is pretty good. Alright, so if one of the cylinders is low on compression, what you can do is you can put some motor oil down in there. Probably just want to do like a spoonful. Don't want to do any more than that because you don't want to lock the motor up. Retest it and see what you get. If the compression jumps back up, you probably have some worn piston rings. Alright. If the readings don't change at all, more than likely you have a problem with the valve, okay? And a problem with the valve could be actually a lifter or it could be the valve itself. So you got to dig a little deeper into that. But man, with this thing, I was pretty surprised with the readings. They're all really high. My buddy should be. I can't wait to tell him. Do a little compression test. It's good, man. 140, 145, 150, 150, 145, 140, 140. It's all within spec. And there's a variance in between cylinders of what you're supposed to have. And I'll put all that up on the screen and down in the comment box of what all the specs are and things like that. And the torque specs on the spark plugs, they're like 30 foot-pounds, and those things were in there like, they were hand-tight in there. That would probably make it run better once I torque those things down. But I'll have all the information for you down in the description box. I'll leave some links down there for the tools, for this guy here. This guy here is super helpful for doing work like this. So you're not running back and forth in the car, getting it dirty and not knowing what you're cranking on, and you can see what's happening. So this thing's real handy. And it's like $14. So I'll leave links for all this stuff down below. And tell me what you thought of the video. If this helped you out, do me a favor and hit the thumbs up. Subscribe if you want to see more. I'm going to do some more stuff with this thing. Fuel pressure test. Put a lift on it. Do the valve cover next. All kinds of things. And check out the channel. And that's pretty much it, I guess. You guys take care. Be safe. Have a great weekend. Later. If you have any questions, just leave them down below.